Good evening. Well, evening for me. Time for another stream. Hopefully this is working alright. I've reconfigured OBS just a little bit since last time. I thought to start with, we just have a look at the BBC Micro here. It's a BBC Model B that I cleaned up, it was about a month ago now. This is the better of the two that I've got. We'll get onto the other one shortly. This one's even got its ashtray cutout still in place, hasn't been punched through like they often are. So yeah, we'll a bit mucky in the corner there. So we'll pop the lid off because I've already taken the screws out. We'll pop the lid off and we can have a bit of a look at what I've done to it. Just got to be careful lifting this off because you'll see in a minute there's a mobile phone about to go off in the background. That's what this is about to be. So you can see we've got a second processor here which we'll get into in a minute. That'll be right, I forgot to take the keyboard screws out. So we'll take those out so we can have a bit of a look at wrong size socket too. Not that one. It's going to be something I don't have immediately to hand, obviously. It's going to be a bit crude and use a little shifter to undo. I should have done this earlier in preparation, but I didn't think to, did I? Fortunately, it's in the two screws. Then we can pop the keyboard out of here. Okay, so a few things that we've changed here. This BBC originally, I can't even see where it was now, originally had a mod done to it to put the colour signal in with the composite output, so you'd have a colour composite. That reduces the picture quality quite a bit, so I undid that mod. Yeah, once I get my RGB to HDMI adapters working, I'll probably, well, I won't need it because I'll be using the RGB output, but anyway. So, yeah, the power supply got recapped a bit over a month ago. That was the full recap, so it was the reefers and all of the other capacitors as well. I figured once I was in there, I might as well get it all done. It's not too big of a job. The hardest bit's getting the power switch out because of where the little latches are for it. It's quite difficult to get in there and apply pressure to get the switch out. But other than that, not too bad. So this machine's it's fairly optioned up, this one. It doesn't have the speech synthesizer chips which go here. It's got the Ethernet networking built in this one, so it's most of these BBCs, sort of where I live, they've come out of schools, and a lot of the schools had Ethernet networking, so it's not uncommon to see them with the Ethernet modules. Having said that, the other one I've got down here, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I did replace the 8271 disk controller with a WD1772. No particular reason. The guy I bought, I think it was when I bought the sideways RAM module, he said, "Oh, would you like a 1770 DFS?" Yeah, sure, why not? So I ordered one of those as well. That's pretty much a drop-in replacement. Take the 8271 out, put the 1770 in. I think there was a couple of jumpers to change, and there might have been a link or two to put in an IC socket. Yeah, there's one of the mods there. I don't know whether you can't quite see it for the keyboard cable, but there's an empty IC socket and there's just a jumper that comes supplied that you just drop in there. There's a couple of little things like that to do, but other than that it was a pretty straightforward job. So we've got a sideways RAM ROM board that basically presents, if I'm remembering correctly, presents as all 16 ROM sockets, 8 of which are battery backed RAM and 8 of which are flash memory. I like this one. When I got this machine, it actually had, I think it's a solid disk. Yeah, it is a solid disk sideways RAM module in it, and it sat over here, plugged into one of the ROM sockets, but had all these ungainly, horrible jumper wires all over the place, and it was just, yeah, it just looked messy. So I took that out and replaced it with one of these sideways RAM boards from Steve Picton, I think is the guy's name. I bought it off eBay, but yeah, really good board. So you take the ROM out of whichever socket that is, I think it's 12, take the processor out, pop the board in, processor back in to the sideways RAM board, and run this jumper over, and you're pretty much done. And really popping the CPU out, that's a bit bright, isn't it? Can't really do much about that. The popping the CPU out's not that big of a deal. I guess popping the brains of the computer out might sort of freak some people out, but it's not as bad as it sounds. So the hardest bit of this is actually lining the pins on the sideways ROM board up with the ROM socket and the processor socket at the same time, and just being careful not to bend anything on the way in. But yeah, that works really well. I've got a bunch of ROMs and what have you loaded into that already. I would really like to be able to fire this up and show you the output, but I don't have any way of capturing it. I do have a TV over here that I've got it plugged into, but every time I try and even point a camera at the TV, I just get horrible reflections. Or you can almost, actually, well, you can't, wrong camera, but we might be able to see it in a minute. You won't be able to read anything though, that's the problem. It's too far away. It's this monitor over here, and it's a bit far away. You'd think it looks like it's a fairly dark corner of the room, but if I point my one of my cameras at it, I just get all sorts of reflections. Doesn't matter what angle I try, I was just getting reflections. So it'll have to wait for another day when I get some sort of HDMI capture capability. So anyway, so yeah, that's the sideways RAM and ROM board. This is a Pi tube. Oh, sorry. Before we get onto that, let's just quickly have a look at. So this is the sideways ROM board. So this 40-pin socket, which is this socket here, RAM controller chip for the battery backup, 4 or 5 years of battery life out of the battery that's on board. 8 banks of 16K sideways RAM and 8 banks of 16K flash ROM. So yeah, really nice little board. As it says there, that I'm not quite sure that there's obviously an engineering reason why it's this way, and I haven't gone into it, but the sideways RAM are in ROM sockets 0, 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 12 and 13 and the flash ROM are in 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 14 and 15. There's obviously a reason, there'd be a hardware reason why that's the case, yeah. The one benefit of the sideways RAM, of course, is you can write to it. So ROMs can ROMs can actually reserve part of what would normally be sideways ROM and be able to write to it for temporary storage and what have you. And I think from memory, the disk filing system ROM does that in order to keep the page variable, so where your basic programs start, it keeps that right down at E00, which is typical of like cassette filing system based machines. So it's good for that. The downside is some ROMs actually write to themselves deliberately as a method of like software piracy protection. So if you've got one of those ROMs, you either have to load it into the flash ROM where it can't write to itself, or you need to modify the ROM image so that it doesn't inflict self-harm upon itself. And you might think, well, if it's flash ROM, surely the ROM image can still write to it. And it's like, it can, but in order to write to these flash modules, there's a specific sequence of bytes. From memory, it's a specific sequence of bytes need to be written to specific memory locations within the flash. I don't think these bytes actually get written, but it triggers the ability to write. So it's, yeah, you can't just write to an address in the flash ROM and have it actually write. There's a process to go through. So yeah, by default it comes with some games loaded up, basic. So I'm trying to remember. I think they generally encourage you to put the basic ROM into flash memory. I haven't. My basic ROM is still sitting right here, just because, and my MMFS, I'll get into that in a minute, my disk filing system is a physical ROM as well. Although I may have these mirrored in flash, I can't remember. What else? So yeah, it's pretty straightforward install. Not really much to say. I mean, as you can see there, it you know, you pop the processor out. That's literally what I said. You can, you've already seen it on my machine. Hook the jumper up. Voltage requirements. So yeah, if the power supply is slightly out of spec, then this board will struggle to work properly. I tested mine and it's well within spec, so no issues there. And I haven't seen any issues, and I don't expect to at this point. So yeah, quite a nice little card. And if I remember correctly, the MB link, you can, I think, set a jumper which unmaps, I think, sockets 14 and 15 from memory, so that the actual onboard ROMs become active. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. So the other thing this machine's got, which I won't show you on my machine because I'd have to actually turn the machine upside down to do it. But I've got one of these sort of micro SD interface cards. It plugs into the user port, I think it is. It's plugged in right there, I can see it. I can't remember which port's which in. I'm going to have to tip it up a little bit so I can see it. Yeah, into the user port. I thought it was. It looks just like the picture here. SD card. It comes with a 2 gig card. In practice, that's way bigger than it needs. I think the actual disk image file, which stores, I think, 512 single-sided BBC floppies, I think comes in about 100 meg. And yeah, that works quite well. So you basically got 512 floppy disks at your disposal, and you can put any one of them in any of the 4 BBC drives anytime you want. It's pretty quick. It's quicker than a floppy drive. So yeah, I've got mine plugged directly into the user port like this. You can, as it alludes to here, you can get an extension cable and actually run it up well, you can either run it out the front of the machine, but that's a bit ugly, or you can run it up inside the machine. But given that it's hidden underneath, I really didn't see much of a point in doing that. So it's just there on the other side of that connector under this plastic that sits in there, nicely out of the way. Then we've got the Raspberry Pi Zero based second processor for the BBC, and that's the Raspberry Pi there. I got the couple of bits of plastic cable tied to it because it's suspended from the inside of the top case by Velcro, and if it happened to drop off, I just didn't want anything on the circuit board of the Raspberry Pi coming into contact with anything on the board of the BBC and blowing anything up. So in theory, if it drops off the inside of the case, it'll just sit there and it won't short anything out. Not that it has dropped off yet, but it could. So yeah, you've got the Raspberry Pi, and then this board underneath, basically just for level shifting. It converts the Raspberry Pi's 3.3 volts to the 5 volts required by the BBC. The split cable, that's for no other reason than I didn't have any 40-way, I think it's 40-way, didn't have any 40-way ribbon, but I did have some, I think it was 25-way ribbon, so pruned 5 cores off each one, put them side by side, and hey presto, 40-core cable. That's all that's about. It was just what I had on hand. So where are we? So the Raspberry Pi second processor, it's actually by user Hoglet 67 David Banks, same guy that did the RGB to HDMI adapter that I'll be building hopefully shortly. I actually ordered some of the parts for it last night. So this Raspberry Pi Zero based coprocessor, it doesn't run Raspbian or any of the normal Raspberry Pi operating systems. It actually is an image that runs natively on the hardware. I don't know whether I don't think it's using like a Linux kernel. I think it's basically booting its own literally dedicated code, I think. But yeah, these are what it can emulate: 274 megahertz 65C102, a 3 meg 65C102, 112 megahertz Z80, and so I mean you can read as well as I can, but or a 1 gigahertz ARM native. The most useful, of course, is the 65C102, which emulates probably the most common second processor for these machines, and I'm guessing a lot of people use that to play the enhanced version of Elite. I'm not really a game player myself. I do use the second processor mostly for the extra memory that I get, so I can run a text editor in like mode 3 for the 80 columns and still have the full complement of memory available to me, which is quite nice because the screen memory's on the host system, but the editor itself's running on the second processor, so yeah, so that's kind of nice. And of course you can turn it off, so I don't have to reach in here and physically, underneath even, and physically unplug it to disable it. You can turn it off in software as well. So there's some photos from when David was developing it by the look of it. There's your Raspberry Pi Zero, and yeah, it's pretty nice. And there's the I think the enhanced version of Elite. As I say, I'm not a gamer, so it's not something that I've played with. And you've got the ARM second processor running the Acorn, or I'm sorry, running the ARM version of the BBC Basic. The 32016. Yeah, don't know much about those. And Panos, whatever that is, no idea. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. I think if you've got a Raspberry Pi 4, I think, or even was it a 3? you can do some fancier things, but really the Pi Zero does everything that I want it to do. So that's fine. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty cool. So that, as I say, just lives there normally. What else is there to look at? Actually, there's not really much else that I've done. I'd love to give a bit of an on-screen demo of the various things, but until I can do some decent video capture, that's not really gonna work that well. But yeah, so that's what I've done. It's cleaned up pretty well. I guess we put him back together. Plug the speaker in. The only thing I did have to do when I put the disc controller in was the connector for the keyboard was fouling the this little daughter board, so I actually had to swap the cable end for end, so the connectors went in the other way. But that's no big deal. It's just something I had to do. I don't like the way they did this. This just seems like a really kludgy way of attaching a keyboard. I mean, it works, nut and bolt, but it just seems overly agricultural. Don't quite know why they did that. I guess you're not supposed to. Well, I was going to say you're not supposed to pull it apart, but then it's got user replaceable ROMs and all sorts of user replaceable things in it, so I guess you kind of are supposed to pull it apart. Right, and with the lid, which I'll put there, just sit it there, and my keyboard things are falling out. Just gently stick the processor back on. Maybe we can stick it a bit better than that, but oops, if I plug the keyboard back in. All of my zero viewers, or one viewer, probably yelling at me, "You haven't put your keyboard back in." Have now. There's the two screws here. These are actually really easy to get apart and put back together. I remember doing this back when I was in high school. Pull the old BBCs apart and do things with them. No, here we go, it's upside down. So there's the SD card module. I never was a fan of these floppy power connectors. They are as loose as, yeah, they just come across as dodgy. It's just because the connector's loose in the power supply frame, but it just seems so dodgy. Let's see if it still works. No reason it shouldn't. Yep, and hey presto, you can't quite see it, but it's come up on the screen there. Acorn tube 6502 64K Model B MMFS SWRAM Turbo. And page variable set to 800. So what's 800? 2K, the 2K mark. So it's even lower than if you had a cassette filing system, because it's using the software RAM version of the disk filing system, which is putting its workspace in the sideways RAM itself. So yeah, still works. Thought it would, which is good because I actually use this machine from time to time for bits and pieces. Put my key strips back in. Done. And this floppy drive actually does work. Put this over here. Okie dokie. So, the next cab off the rank is going to be, I'll do a bit more on this one. Sorry for the crappy lighting. I do have another light here on my magnifying, it's like a magnifying glass light. But after it warms up, it starts strobing. So it must drift off 50 hertz for some reason. And then it starts strobing on the camera. So it's a little bit annoying. And of course, what I should have done is put this other BBC where I can see it. Still don't know where the keys go when I put them back on. So yeah, last time around we cleaned the keys and they're obviously all dry. Let me just turn that down a bit, I think. The audio volume's a little bit high. Okay, the space bar we'll leave to last because that's a bit of a pain. 3, 5, 4, 2, 7, 1. Right, so F1. Because F0 is the first one. 8. Must be 0 shortly. Yep. F0. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the brake key goes on the end when we find it. Cursor keys are the copy key are the brown ones. Tab. Well, that's not hard to work out where that goes. What else have we got here? The return key will be that one. Shift will be that one. Should be another one of those somewhere. Where's my other shift key? There it is. And we have a copy key goes to the right. And these, I think that's going to be left, right, down, and up. Squeaky. Caps lock will be that one. Delete will be that one. I'll turn these light the right way so we can actually see them. Brake key, whenever that goes. Shift lock key goes there. Okay. Where's S? S. D. F. There's D, F, 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 F. Sure it's here somewhere. And there's a control key. Anyway, that will go. No, I got them wrong. I need a key puller. I should have got one somewhere. interesting to see if this key puller. See if this key puller actually works, because it's not designed for these keys, it's designed for Logitech keys. We'll give it a go. Sort of. A, S, and control goes there. A, S, D. W. Where's my Q? Q, Q, Q. Q, W, E. R, T. Y, QWERTY. Y. U. No, that's a J. Can't see for looking. U. I. O. P. We've got an escape key somewhere. Escape. And then we start with the number 1. 2 is 2. 2. 2. Your 3 here somewhere. 5. 6. It's 9, so it's 6, it's 9. That's 6. 8. 3. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. And a 0 somewhere. Okay. 0. Right, and then we've got the minus equals. Carry and tilde. Backslash. That one. We've got the at key. At. That one goes there. Pound key goes there. A, S, D, F, G, H, J, G, H, G, H, J, K, L, K, L, Z, X, C, V, B, N, M, and slash, question mark, and we've got alright. Oh, and spacebar. So this is fiddly because I've got to hook the bar back in here. Oh, and my little plastic tabs are in a tub here somewhere, so I didn't lose them. Try trying not to lose them. Get that out. These just push back up into. Is there any particular way? Oh, they do. That's in, and that's in. And these fiddly, not too bad, just a little fiddly. That one's a bit tighter than the last one I did. That's when you find out you got it backwards. And this pushes into there, and hey presto. Spacebar. Right, so there's not really a lot to say about this machine. This one's pretty much stock compared to the. Not sitting flat. Oh, it's missing a foot. Missing a rubber foot in the back corner. See if I can find one of those somewhere. I don't have any, but I'm sure I can find some. So yeah, this one's fairly standard. There's nothing plugged into the connectors at the front of the board. No Ethernet modules, no voice synthesis. Bog standard 8271 disk controller. I think the distinction is the 8271, I think, only does single density disks, and I think the 1770 can do double density, but I could be wrong. I haven't checked this. Haven't checked the specs. But other than that, it's pretty standard. Got an operating system ROM, a Vue word processor ROM, an Edward word processor ROM, Watford DFS, which is interesting because I'm not sure that the Watford DFS actually works with the 8271. I'll have to check that, but I'm leaning towards saying it probably doesn't. So I might have to swap that out with a different DFS, and that'll be the basic ROM. There's no sideways RAM, sideways ROM in this machine. It's pretty much what you see is what you get. But yeah, we might have to swap out the disk filing system. I do have some older Acorn DFS ROMs here somewhere, and I mean older, like I think 0.9E was the version, so it's pretty old. So put this back together. I won't remember what I did with the screws for the keyboard. Now they're probably in this tub, but yeah, they're probably not too. They're out of the tin on the floor. Nope. Oh, I remember, this machine didn't have any screws holding the keyboard in when I got it. That's why I don't have the screws. It didn't have any screws holding the case on either, now that I remember. So I need to find some screws to do that. So that's the machine. I guess we'll give it a quick power up, see if it does. And then I've got a floppy drive unit down here. We might try plugging in. See if we can get it to play nicely. So this power supply has been recapped as well, as per the sticker. It was like the last one, a full recap. The reefers and about I think 9 or 10 other capacitors. There were some broken solder joints on the keyboard for these LEDs. Buggered if I know why. I've never seen keyboard LEDs on a BBC do that before, but anyway. So they've been redone. Let's see what we get. Good start. BBC computer 32K Watford Electronics DDFS 1.54T basic. Oh, machine. Yep. machine starts up, and most importantly the screen modes that rely on the SA5050 and the modes that don't both work. That was a problem I had with this machine when I first got it. I think I covered that in a previous video. It was a bit of a pain in the bum to find. Now I'll turn that off and I'll dig out this floppy drive unit. This here, floppy drive unit, which needs a good clean. We'll see if it works. The case needs a good clean on this computer as well. I guess normally you'd take the board completely out and do all that, but I didn't take the board out. So I'll clean it with it on. This pig in a poke. Power connector. Hate these things. Okay. Floppy disk I prepared earlier. See what we get. See what we get. Oh, we've got no video, but that's because I didn't plug the video cable back in. That'll do it every time. Yeah, and it's not at all happy. I reckon that DFS needs replacing. Question is, what did I do? There we go. And where's my chip lifter? It's off here. I do have a an actual push, fancy chip lifter, but I find that for these I don't really need it. Oh, there we go. Acorn DFS 2.26. Huh. I do have a new one. And that, I think, will have the Ethernet code in it, which is kind of irrelevant for this machine because there's no Ethernet interface. But I think 2.26 had it. Alright, let's see what we get now. Ooh. That's a little suboptimal. Just gone back to cassette mode. Okay, well the ROM's in the right way. Maybe the ROM's dead. I might run that through the Mini Pro in a minute, see if we can read it. Didn't bend any pins or anything, did we? No. It all looks quite okay. So I've got another DFS. I don't know what DFS this one is. I do have one that's labelled as 0.9, but I'm just curious to see what this one is. Whether it's like a 1.2 disk filing system. Acorn DFS. DFS 0.9. But it does read the disk. It reads that one. And it reads that one. So, not exactly an extensive DFS test, but at least it reads the directory sectors and the drive starts and stops and does the other things. So, let's just put the Mini Pro down. And see, where are we? Just got a few things open here. So Mini Pro, which one's that? That one. Right, so try and remember how to do this now. Ooh. Don't think I've ever read a ROM with this. I wonder what ROM it is. That's a good question. $27.64 or thereabouts. Device. ROM. Actually, it probably says on it. Ooh, hopefully this doesn't strobe. I'll turn this on. No, it doesn't say. It's under the sticker. 27.60. Oh, I didn't work it out. 27. No. 27.64. I'm guessing it's going to be. Well, we'll try that anyway. Read. No, I want to read the ID. Might read the ID now though. Right, 28D grey. Well, that doesn't actually tell me what that is, but see if we can read it. Check ID. Right, so it's not the. It's not. Oh, it's not going to be. I don't reckon that'll be it. We'll see. No, not. Checked ID is 28D, or wasn't that? Yeah, what is 28D though? What device? How do I search by? How do I search? Hmm. 27 holes. Device read. Oh, there we go. Here's Hitachi. About all I can say is it Reddit. Is it corrupt? Anyone's guess. I mean, the messages in the ROM look alright, so it doesn't appear to be a, on the surface anyway, it doesn't appear to be like a stuck bit or anything silly like that. But it could be a bad page. It's hard to know. Yeah. Or maybe the Acorn, no, I'm sure DFS 2.26 worked with, I'm sure it worked with these machines. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. The ROM reads, but whether what I'm getting out of it is completely valid is anyone's question. Anyone's guess. But for the sake of the exercise, the 0.9 DFS will be just fine. So, it's probably a fair bet that these floppy drives work. They just need a good cleanup. I wonder how much of a cleanup they will take. Let's just shuffle some things around. Turn that off. Shuffle some things around a little bit. spilt on it. Be careful here because I don't want to get like liquid in through the vents and into the drive. Although, begs the question, should I just maybe I should just take it apart and see what's doing inside it. I might do that. Because until I pop it open, I won't know if someone's spilt something in it. I mean, it's working, but you know, it doesn't mean there's not stuff spilled in it that's going to gum it up eventually. So it's probably worth investing a few minutes to pop it apart. Someone's had it apart before because there's a screw missing. Right. Oh, that's not good. Kidding me? Right. So the first thing that became immediately obvious is this little cover that sits over the head here. I'm not quite sure exactly what purpose it serves. It's like a dust cover, but it's got a little piece of foam in there that sticks it to the top of the head, and that's deteriorated over time, and it was barely sitting there. So that's a bit of a problem. I mean, I'm sure the drive will work fine without it, but it's just, yeah, kind of dirty up the back where the vents were. Not entirely surprised, I guess. I'll give it a bit of a blowout in a minute. Just get the. She's a tight fit. Ugh. I'll have my keyboard. Yeah, she's a bit of a tight fit. This will blow dust everywhere you watch. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not as bad as I was expecting. All things considered, these drives are fairly clean actually inside. I have seen much worse. So I don't think we'll put that little cover back on because, yeah, I haven't got anything to stick it back on with. Oh yeah, that's all tacky and horrible. But yeah, I might have to stay off. In any case, since the top's off, we don't have to worry about anything getting wet underneath. I can hit it with a bit of the bicarb water. A few scratches there, can't do much about those. Unless I'm going to sand it down a bit and repaint it. I think it's just natural wear and tear. It'll be mostly the top that's dirty. Mostly the top because my hands must be filthy. So hit that with a bit of gnarly. Bit of alcohol here in a sec. There before I spill it. Front of these drives a little bit of a clean. That's probably enough to be able to put it back together. Memories of these from when I was at school. These were a pig of a thing. Because the case is barely big enough to fit the drives in. Really kind of careful. Skidmark. Oh, this bit's stuck pretty good. Twisted that a few times. So that's a fraction cleaner than it was. I wonder if it still works. Has to be video cable. I imagine it does. No reason it shouldn't. No reason at all that it shouldn't. And that's why it won't. Oh. Drive 2 won't work because it's not formatted. I have a funny feeling. I think the format utility in DFS.9 was actually a disk-based utility. I don't think it was built into the ROM. taking me back a long way there. Ooh. Ooh. Right. So this floppy drive is unhappy. Oh, are you kidding me? That cover that I didn't put back in, it appears the other one covering the bottom head has fallen off as well. Of course it has. Of course it has. Turn the machine off before this is what happens when you put the screws back in before you test it. It must have happened when I was putting it back together, because I didn't see that adrift initially. Ah, yep, there it is. Bloody thing. Hope it hasn't pooched the head alignment. I'm supposed to get that out of it. There we go. Yeah, so that one's fallen off as well. Just an artifact of having been upside down. That's a bit crappy. Not a fan of that one. Attempt to fade again by putting the screws back in. He says as the screws don't reach. What? What you doing? Let's get our test disc back. Machine on. That one reads okay. It means that drive's happy actually. I think that drive might have got knocked out of alignment. Maybe it's not. Oh, well, if I put the disc in the drive, it'll probably work better. Let's try it again. Now the disc's actually in there. Right, so they're both, but that could be the formatting of the disc, and I don't have a disc with the format utility handy. Otherwise I'd reformat the disc and see, so I might have to do that at another time. That's a bit annoying. Or it could be something entirely different. It's been that long, I can't remember what disc fault 0C actually is. Anyway. the main purpose of the exercise was to get the BBC itself working. I think we've done that. Plug it. So I'm going to have to play with this floppy drive. I might even play with it on the other machine. Once this is back together. So I've got to find some little screws. See if I can use my light here without it. No, strobing already. Bugger. Let's apply a couple of screws in here that might do the deed. Not the nicest of screws, but they are screws nonetheless. And they would do the deed if they were longer. And I do have some longer screws, but they are way longer. They are different end of the scale long. So this is a little screw. Oh. Maybe. Maybe we'll get lucky here. That's too short. These are going to be too long. Not that much too long there. I wonder if those nuts will fit. Indeed they will. We'll have a washer. It says putting the washers on top of the power supply and hoping they don't fall down through the cracks and short stuff out next time I turn it on. Because that's always entertaining. I love blowing things up, not. Definitely not a fan of things that go bang. Well, not unexpectedly go bang anyway. I don't mind things that go bang when you expect it. Not so much fun when you don't expect it. What did I do with my little shifter? Hello, shifter. Where it is? Right, so that's that. Put my alcohol back over there and my hot air, cold air, back over there. Right, so get some screws for that. Don't need that anymore. I am going to come up short when it comes to screws to hold the case on, though, I suspect. I do have a much bigger collection of screws and things out in the garage, but I'm not going to go through that right now because it'll probably take me forever to find some actual screws that fit. Oh, good God, look at this case. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that pretty? Not so much. I really need some Kerosene's good for getting stickers like this off. You can soak the sticker in kerosene and it soaks through and loosens the glue. remember back in the day, working on, well, they called it a mainframe, I called it a mini computer because it wasn't that big. But sometimes we had to get these sorts of labels off disk packs. And the easiest way to do it, exactly as I say, put some kerosene on it, let it soak in, and then the labels would peel right off. Unfortunately, I don't have any kerosene. I should get some though. Yeah, this is going to be a pain. Wonder if alcohol sprayed on it will loosen it up. Trouble is, the alcohol will probably evaporate before it loosens up. Or maybe not. Not my favourite pastime, peeling stickers off, I must say. Oh, glad I didn't trim my fingernails this morning. I could do it with a knife, but then I'd probably scratch the perspex, so obviously I don't want to do that. Snotty and horrible. Remember when coronavirus first kicked off, you couldn't buy isopropyl alcohol. Everyone was buying it in like 5-litre containers and using it as hand sanitizer. Fortunately, you can buy it again now. Sticky, snotty, horrible, bloody glue. Ugh. Come off. Ah, stuck to my finger. Clean-ish. Good God, now this case. It's probably going to need the. It's gnarly. It's probably going to need the bicarb soda treatment. I don't know whether that shows up all that well on camera, but you can see that's bringing the dirt off already. I don't know what it is about the bicarb soda, but does a great job bringing grime and crap off things like this. Oh, there it is. Doesn't come off, whatever it is. Look at that. You probably can't see it all that well, but there's like just pools of dirty muck. It's just, you just let the bicarbs soak for like a few seconds and hey presto. You can see the muck on the desk that's just come off it. Sorry about the flapping. You can see up on the, maybe, I can't see what you, no, you can't quite. Yeah, you can sort of see it there. The streaks where it's run down the side and cleaned off where it ran down. I don't know what the go is with bicarb soda, but it does a good job. Clean my desk off. Just a quick wipe. Oh. Hate it when you throw something in the bin and then miss it. Well, throw something at the bin and then miss it. So the other BBC that I've got over here, that first one I showed, that actually lives upstairs usually, and lives on my desk up there, and I use it for things from time to time. I was actually hoping when I get round to doing more on this 6502 system I'm building, that hoping I might be able to use it to do the software development. I mean, there's plenty of good development environments for the PC. I mean, the first bit of the code I was doing, I used VS Code with a 6502 plugin, and yeah, that's great. And all works well. No complaints. Used the CC65 toolchain to assemble the code and what have you. But I think there's some charm, I guess, in writing the operating system code on an actual 6502. I reckon that'd be moderately cool. So yeah, we'll see. Right. So unfortunately, I don't have the screws to screw the lid on, and this one's got its ashtray punched out too. It's come from a school, so no doubt the school kids did it. I wonder if I can find even some screws to temporarily put in there just to hold the lid on. Something I can put in there without absolutely destroying the holes. Have I got anything down here? Locking washers, nuts, bolts. Screws. What's in screws? Maybe there's something in here that I can use as a temporary sort of I don't really want to cut new holes or destroy anything, I just want to hold it closed. That sort of works. It seems to use the existing threads. I did see on eBay the other night you can actually buy the you can actually buy the genuine screws. I don't know that I want to go quite that all out, but that is handy to know that more of that sticker attached to my finger. Oh, are you kidding me? Right, what do we got? Another screw. No, it's a different screw because it doesn't have the same. It's slightly shorter anyway, so. I'll find another one of those. The ones up the back are slightly shorter, so well, that's not the same. I'd like to find two the same if I can. What's that? Nope, that's definitely not. You're right, should be impossible now to find another one the same. Murphy's law of screw trays. I'll never find another one the same. All I want is one. All I want is one more. That might do a pinch. It's different, but for reals, right, I think I'm going to go with that for the moment. These screws are only temporary for the next 30 years. So you know how temporary goes, right? Everything you do that's temporary lasts forever. I am missing a tray. Where am I missing a tray? Anyway, so I mean that was literally a dirty. Oh, I was thinking there's a dirty mark on the case right there. It's like, no, but I can't see it. It's a dirty mark on my monitor. It's yeah, a dirty mark. Where was it? Here somewhere, right on the monitor. So anyway, that's that's a 5 minute. Oh, I haven't put the key strip back on. So this goes on here. Yeah, that's a 5 minute clean. I mean, I could probably get these permanent marks off if I tried hard enough, but really this machine's sort of a spare for the other one, really. It's the other machine is the one I plan on using the most, and if something catastrophic happens to it, it goes up in flames, thunderbolts and lightning, then I've got another machine. So anyway, that one is pretty much as done as it's going to be. But what we could do, this is the other one that, the first one we looked at, just for giggles. What if, take the floppy drive out. Take that floppy drive out, which I know works because I've been using it. This is going to be problematic, isn't it? I still don't have a disk formatting utility. One in ROM would be really nice. I can't remember if the later ROMs actually have. Oh, actually, this machine might have, because this one's got the 1770 with the Watford DFS, so this might actually have formatting utilities in ROM that I can use to format and verify floppies with. So let's see. I don't know the Watford DFS all that well. Back when we were at school and we had these machines, we didn't have luxuries such as the Watford DFS. Put that in. Video cable. Unfortunately, you can't readily see. Now I've got to remember how to get this back into. How do I get this back into floppy disk mode? That is the question. Nope, not like that. Doesn't help having a monitor over there. Okay, let's do. Let's do what common sense says you do. And Google it. Oh, MMF. Yes. Fire. Yes, I remember this. So opt 5,1. Okay, that doesn't seem to. Well, yeah, there does seem to be 5, and it causes disk and starts to do nothing. Right, so how do you do this? Yeah, well, maybe I don't have a DFS ROM loaded. That'd be funny, wouldn't it? Huh. Well, there you go. I actually don't. That'd be why my DFS isn't playing very nicely. So let's see if I've got. Do I have? I've got some DFS images here. Where's some ADFS images. I would have thought I would have the Watford. Really? surprised I don't have 509. I'm just inserting various discs and looking for the 1P54T, that'd be it. So we will put that in 12. What? Yeah. Oh, that's that one. It's a bit tedious. Just insert 509. We want it in 12. Let's just see 1P54T, except it's in hex. Right, that should have put the Watford in. Yep, it did. So now if we start right, 5.1, start disk, hey presto. So now we can guess help the utils. This would be interesting. Somewhere, sorry, it'd be nice if you could actually see what I'm doing here. There we go. Well, that wasn't what I wanted. Awesome. Trap for young players there. I just formatted a SD card disk. Oops. Because the format command is common between both ROMs. Grrr. That's disappointing. I have a backup copy of the SD card image on my PC upstairs. So it's not, I haven't lost anything. But it's just annoying. I wonder if I can do. Disable. What's the command? ROM. Trying to remember the command. Disable ROM. Oops. What a nuisance. Can't believe I did that. It's not there because it's not the first time I've done it. Oh joy, oh joy, oh joy. I want to disable. There's a command to do it, I can't remember what it is. Nope, that's not. No, that's uncool. Looks like it was my library disk that I or was it my boot disk? Oh, it's the boot disk, that's right. That's not quite so hard to fix. In fact, I can just do start copy boot to 0. No? What the? Oh. boot. Oh, if I could type. I wish you could see what I was doing. Huh? What the? Do I just have to... Oh, it's been that long. Maybe I'll just do that. No? Oh, of course. It's 30. And star drive 0 star... what is it? Oh, star... Oh, what's the command to set the boot option? It's that surely. No. Oh, there it is. Anyway, back to normal. Maybe we'll just I can't remember the command. There's a command to actually protect the drive so you don't override it. Just protect all those volumes, so theoretically I shouldn't be able to overwrite them again. This is turning into quite a saga. All I want to do, maybe I'll do it again. Disable ROM. I used to do this stuff all the time when I was a kid. And now I can't remember how to do it. Just kill command, but I don't. Unplug. Ah, bingo, that's what I wanted. Okay. Didn't sound too happy there for a second. Actually, if you're looking at this on a PC monitor, you probably can actually read the TV. It's only 40 columns wide. Seems to be sort of struggling in places. I don't know if that's the disc media. Because, I mean, let's face it, these discs weren't manufactured yesterday by any stretch. Or maybe it's the drive. Ooh, that sounded like some lube was required. Just do a verify pass on. And struggled there. Yeah, it might, just do the other side, whoops. I might have to get some of that sort of silicone lube. Try lubing things up a little bit, see what it does. Yeah, it struggled there. Well, I'd say it struggled there, it made some funny noise there for a second. And the step rate's not consistent, it's like it's writing but occasionally having trouble. Be nice if it was like a, if it was sort of like more of a modern machine and there was like a debug flag you could specify. It would tell you all the issues it was having along the way. That'd be nice. Sort of a verbose output switch would be handy. Nearly done. So that's the second side of the first drive. Let's see. So that's flying through the verification. That's about the speed it should be going all the way through. Makes me wonder if maybe the top head, is it the top head I think is drive 0? Maybe it's marginally out of alignment. Interesting, it wouldn't read that same floppy that was formatted in the, well, that floppy was actually formatted in this machine. Interesting. I wonder if it's a DFS compatibility issue. Because the other machine couldn't read this disk in this drive, but this machine could. Well, sort of. It's not particularly conclusive. Anyway. So that's nearly done. I'll have to do some digging on how to check the head alignment on these drives. With any luck you can put it through some sort of cycle like this and hook the oscilloscope up to it and optimize it for maximum signal or something. So we'll just format the other side and then we'll go back and verify both of them, see how it looks. So once this is done, put this aside and I'll whip out the Z80 machine that I'm working on building so you can see the current state of that. I would be a little bit further advanced, but the supplier that I ordered my IC sockets from, to give you an idea, this is what they call a tube of 24-way. If that focuses, yeah, tube of 24 20-way sockets. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like a tube with 24 sockets in it to me. This is what I call a tube of IC sockets. That's not a tube of 20 pins, that's a tube of 8s, but that's what I expected. That's what I got. But they didn't just do that once, they did it twice. 2 different orders, I ordered a tube of IC sockets, and twice they sent me a bag with 1 socket instead of a tube for them. So hopefully I'll have some IC sockets arriving here tomorrow to fix the first lot. Yeah, so they're going to freight me an actual tube of IC sockets, and the freight will cost them probably as much as the package, as much as the goods are worth. And then they're going to send a courier to come and collect the incorrectly delivered single socket that's worth 10/10 of sod all. Right, so that's verifying. I think it's the drive 1. I think it's the top. I can't remember if the lower number drive's the top or the bottom, to be honest. But so far so good. So yeah, I'd be further advanced on the Z80 if the sockets that I'd ordered had been shipped correctly, but alas they were not. But once we're done here, I'll pull that out and you can see where I'm up to. Some good progress. I can't talk. Some good progress has been made, so that's a good thing. Yeah, well that drive's actually working better than the first one. Anyway, so I'm fairly happy that I can format disks and verify them. Still think it's going to be worth doing some research on how to check the head alignment on these, because I suspect the first drive might have a head alignment issue. But before I go hell for leather pulling it all apart, I might just do a bit of research on how to do it. Let's put this machine over here. The dual floppies can stay here. I'll do a little bit more on those once I work out how to check the alignment. Right, so Z80 time. Z80 time. Z80 time. Using these stab mats probably a little bit excessive for this at this point in time, but considering there's no actual ICs on the board. But anyway, so first things first, where are we? So this is the backplane board. That light is really harsh. That's the backplane board, you've seen that before. What I am going to try and come up with is something for the Dremel, so I can go along with basically a little cutting disc and trim all of these pins down to be only a millimetre or two above the board. I'm guessing these connectors are designed to be wire wrap connectors, which is probably why they were slightly tight to get in the holes. But the problem that creates for me is, how do I get into the middle row to solder them? You just can't get in there with the pins that long. So I'm going to have to find a way of trimming them down so that I can solder them all, because this design actually does use the centre row of pins. On my board that I'm doing for the 6502, the centre row of pins I don't actually use. They're not connected to anything, so I don't have to solder them, but on this one I do. So yeah, that's going along alright. I've got some bypass caps to put in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 7, 14 of those. Yeah, power connectors, power switch. I think I've got a switch I can salvage off something else, power LEDs and stuff like that, but there's not a lot to go on this. The biggest part of the job is going to be soldering all those bloody connectors, because 96 pins on each one by 5, what's that, 480 pins. So that's going to be a little tedious. Don't need that immediately though, because the Z80 board itself doesn't need a backplane to operate. I can run it standalone. So this one's the disk controller board. So this is everything that's on here now is as it is soldered. I've got the sockets. That was the sockets I was talking about, where I ordered the tubes but got the singles in the bag. Thanks for that. So unfortunately I don't have the sockets. I think I've got all the ICs. I just don't have sockets to put them in. I sort of wanted to socket most of these things. What else? There's some connectors that I've ordered there on the way. The 50-pin shoe guard I'm not going to put on. It's mostly just for 8-inch drives. I have no intention of running an 8-inch drive. So yeah, I've got pretty much everything I think to finish that. One complication, because I used the IDC connector with the latches, it's slightly longer than normal, and the disk activity, the IDE activity LED, goes right down here under the connector. So I'm going to have to do a little tweaking to bring that out, but that's no big deal. So yeah, that's going all right. That plugs in, for example, like that. And then we've got the processor card. So the processor card, again, everything you see is already soldered on, fully soldered on. So I've got the IDE connector coming because some muppet, not mentioning any names, ordered an angled one that doesn't fit instead of a straight one that would have fitted. The 1.8432 megahertz crystal, that's coming. There were no stocks of those in the country, so that's coming from overseas. Again, the sockets that are missing are because they cocked up, delivered the wrong ones. The switches, the ones I originally ordered, were back ordered until like middle of August. Like, that's not very helpful, so I've ordered some alternative ones. The flash ROMs, I did a bit of research, because obviously first time round I've got to program these things. Once they're programmed and the machine's running, you can program them in place, like it can self-program them. But the first time I've got to program them off the board. Turns out my Mini Pro can do them, but you need an adapter board with these sockets on it. So I had to order those. I think a set of, I think it's a 9-piece set with it was a bunch of different sockets, was about $10 US or something. So I mean, the quality of those is going to be staggering, right? But you know, I only need to use it once. But yeah, that's, most things are done. Just waiting on the IC sockets. Oh, a 1N4148 diode, of all things. A diode that's so common that I just don't have one. Who would have thought? So I had to order 100 of those. They're all of like a cent each. But yeah, once the sockets arrive and the last couple of components, that'll be ready to populate the last bits, put some chips on board, and see how we go. So exciting times. So that basically just plugs in there like that, and hey presto, that with up to 6 other cards creates a nice little Z80 system. So other cards can be, there's like I/O ports. I think there was a 4-port serial card, if that's your thing. There was I think a RAM disk, or there was a VGA card. There's all sorts of things, but really just to get it going with a dumb terminal on a PC, I figured the processor card and the disk card. The disk card, I need to get the floppy drive connected. The hard drive, you can drive a hard drive off the processor card, but you can't drive a floppy. So yeah, the disk card enables you to run more hard drives and floppy drives. Oh, and there's I think there's is it a compact flash card or an SD card board as well, which I think you can use as a sort of like a, I was going to say a high-speed hard drive. It's probably quite slow, but yeah, that exists. So, but initially I just want to get the thing running, see how it goes, and go from there. So all of the semiconductors and other bits and pieces I need are in the tub here. There's bags and boxes of integrated circuits and all manner of things in there. Just put these away. And I've got to, as I say, got to solder that one up. Looking forward to that like a hole in the head. But I don't need that on day one. The processor card can run just by itself without the backplane. I mean, the backplane really is just a dumb backplane. There's no smarts to it or anything like that. It's just a relatively passive backplane, although it does have power for powering the cards, but that's about it. Anyway, I reckon that's probably about it for tonight. Probably time for me to go and have some food and a bit of a tidy up and take my upgraded BBC computer back upstairs, put it back on my desk. Yeah, that's about it, I reckon. Have a good evening, and I will see you next time. Cheers.